Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking today about, well, we're on the subject of fires again. This has been on our minds a lot the last month and a half or so. But now we're out looking at Dollar Ridge Fire. And for a conversation, we are wanting to talk about not the fire itself, which is at this point all but out and all but contained, but about the aftermath of the fire, which in this case has already started the flooding. Joining us for the conversation, the District Ranger of the Ashley National Forest, Kristy Groves. Thank you for joining us, Kristy. And Ron Winterton, who is a Duchesne County Commissioner. And I appreciate your taking the time to join us today.
Thanks for having us.
I want to talk a little bit about when people live in this interface with nature, the fact that there are inherent hazards with doing it. What is the best defense if you're going to build in the woods? Because a lot of the times your insurance that you can get is very limited. What would be the answer?
So I guess if you want to build in the woods, the best defense with the way that forest fires are going these days is to create a buffer around your house. And we recommend 50 feet of no trees near your house, and having a metal roof actually helps you with that structure as well, so that embers falling on your house don't catch your house on fire from the air.
Kristy's right. I mean, from a county standpoint, when we look at planning and zoning and they come and try to get a building permit, some of the requirements is the defensible space. We want it cut back enough that it gives the opportunity for the first responders to be able to get in there safely and to protect your structures. And so whether it's in town or just out in alfalfa field or something, we still want it cleared away.
So when did the fire break out?
July 1st.
July 1st.
My question is, when did phase 2 of the disaster hit? Because like in Garfield County, it was almost a year to the day after the fire that they got the next thing they were afraid of, the rain and the mudslides. And that happened much quicker up here.
So we had the little mudslide first. Mm-hmm. That was just about a week into the fire, I believe. It was on a Sunday. We had a little bit of rain showers, and we got a little bit of a mud flow right across Strawberry River Road between Timber Canyon and Camelot. And then this last one was July 22nd. We had a little thunderstorms develop kind of right over Lower Timber Canyon, and then that chunk of the Strawberry River right at that junction built up there, had about 1.5 inches of rain in an hour, and that created the mud flow that started coming down from all the little draws in that vicinity all along the Strawberry River. So
you say you had a mini mudslide. How much rain does it take in the aftermath of a fire with no vegetation to hold the ground together to create a mud flow? Does it have to rain very long or very hard?
It wasn't very much water. It was about 1/4 inch of rain over a period of a couple hours, but it was enough to saturate that soil.
I do want to change tacks here for a minute and just talk a little bit about about 404 permitting, because for the residents up there, this has become a big deal. You were able, as a county, to respond for a period of 48 hours. That's the golden number to get in and clear debris and take emergency mitigation work without having to go through a permitting process with the Army Corps of Engineers. So what is the rationale of the 48-hour exemption, and what happens if you can't get things cleared in that 48 hours?
Well, the 48 hours is for us to get in and protect any infrastructures there, whether it's the road that's getting eroded or a bridge that's been something lodged under it and that. We don't want that to go downstream, and so to get in there and to remove the debris or armor the road to protect it, that's what we as a government agency look at, is that we have 48 hours to do that kind of mitigation on that. And then after that time, we still have, after the 48 hours, we still have to put in for a permit, but we tell them what we've done up to this point.
And then from that point forward, you have to go through the planning process, you have to get engineering, you have to go through this whole permit process, which can take how long?
It depends on the impact, whether it's a large area or a small area. They say that they can permit within 30 days. As a county, we had the flood back in 2011. We were 18 months getting through the permitting process and engineering process so that we could actually work on the mitigation that happened, almost 2 years previous. So it's not a fast process, and though the Corps of Army Engineers and Division of Water are sympathetic, they are also charged to protect, whether it's stream alterations and the natural flows or the safety of people. This is what they're looking at, and so we build to their standards.
What happens if you have 48 hours of emergency mitigation work and you have 72 hours of emergency mitigation work that needs to be done? Then what do you do?
Well, we have found if we're protecting infrastructure, usually that 48 hours will extend a little bit, and they'll be lenient with us because, again, they don't want our efforts to be lost. 48 hours is up and we have to pull out, and then we end up losing more. They'll let us finish that up. But again, we have to report what we did and then apply for an application as far as what needed to be done.
I'd like to discuss the rationale behind natural river flows, because that was in the meeting that we attended earlier today. That was a big deal. You just can't go in and do anything on the banks. If you can go in and grab a tree that's without going in the riverbank and you can move it to higher ground, you just don't really need a permit to do that. Call us and ask us, but that's okay if you want to just cherry pick that out and move it away from the river. But if you're going to do anything to stabilize the flow of the river, that's not good. But we were up there today and saw from this one storm that the road that used to be over here now had to be built over here because that was all mud and the river was in the middle. And so it looks to me like if you can't do some kind of permanent, this is how we're going to take this section and channel the water, that you will every couple of years be rebuilding roads at a different point.
In my prior life, before I was a district ranger, I spent 10 years as a fish biologist with the Forest Service. So we did a lot of work in river channels, some post-fire, some not. But having a natural channel, the way that the natural channels work, is designed to dissipate the energy of the water. And so if you have the nice meanders in a meandering system, that dissipates the energy, and the floodplain actually allows for that energy to be spread out over the floodplain. When you develop in it, you put a road right next to it or you put houses next to it, it loses that ability. And so you have more and more energy building up and more flood potential. So the straighter you make the channel, the more confined you make it, the more energy it's going to carry and the more damage it's going to do when it hits something. So a natural channel, a natural meandering channel, not only provides better fish habitat, but it provides for that opportunity to dissipate that energy from the water.
So is this a philosophical thing of saying that who's the intruder here? Because the people that build the house think the river's the intruder, and the river, who wants to dissipate and meander and dissipate all that energy, looks at the people as the intruder. Which one carries the day? That's a golden question you guys might disagree on, but I'm going to put it right out there.
No, that's a good point. I mean, up there in the canyon, it's gone from the south bank to being a northern river, and so it did change the looks of that. And as a county, where do we put the road now that it won't be impacted or have the least impacts and still preserve the fishery that we had up there? I guess the Corps and the engineers will decide what's best to try to keep that natural habitat.
Is there a compromise somewhere in this process where you can say, we're going to bric-a-brac this section right here for this 1,000 feet, and then we'll just kind of let it do its thing, and then there's this one other little bottleneck, and we're going to put a culvert here and control it that way, and just try and do minimal stuff, or does that just affect all of the ecosystem and biology up and down the river?
So anytime you put a culvert in or a bridge in, you're narrowing up the stream. And if you've ever been up there during high flows, you can see how much just forcing all the water down into that narrow point increases the energy and how much erosion that causes. So even just little short segments like culverts can create its own problem. Doing a long section, you're going to add a ton of energy to where it comes out of that section. And that area, you never know what's going to happen once you narrow up that flow. There could be a lot of damage done just by trying to protect a short segment of it.
And then the alternative would be we'll take the road out and don't have any road up there, but then nobody could enjoy it.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of, it'd be a lot of walking. And normally they don't like us crossing their streams. And so they'll be sensitive in that. If we went back to nature, what do the private landowners do with their land that's up there? This is their only way into their real estate, and as a county, we're charged to help protect their right of way to get to their property since it existed already. So it's a hard deal. I don't know how you handle it.
Well, and whenever we have the option, we try and build the roads up a little higher to get them off the floodplain, or try and keep them as far to the edge as possible to still give that river the freedom to move around when it needs to.
Yes, except in this case, it was already on the edge, and the river decided that's where it wanted to be.
This is an extreme event with the fire contributing to it and the excess sediment coming down.
So are there any last points you guys want to make, either one of you?
Well, you know, given outside of this storm, that river is usually controlled coming out of the dam. And so they can control how high the water is at most times. Other times, spring runoff, sometimes they have to open up the dam and let it go. And those people will be impacted anyway. But any other time, we can say that's a nice little river, stream to fish and to enjoy. Now, for the next few years, we're going to have circumstances which we can't even begin to even calculate how much water will come down off from some of these drainages to this river.
The one other hazard that I wanted to bring up, just so people understand that, is entering a fire area, whether it be down on the Strawberry River or up on the forest. There's a potential for hazard trees. All of those trees were burned and killed, and they will come down. And sometimes it doesn't take wind to bring them down. So anybody entering that fire area needs to pay attention to that.
So if you hear cracking sounds, just...
You may not even hear the cracking sound.
Okay, heads up, so to speak. All right.
Heads up anytime you enter a burn area.
Okay, that's actually very good advice. Thank you, Kristy, for that. And thank you. We'll be right back. We'll take a look on the ground in just a minute when we come back on the county seat.